All right, guys, I know you were expecting a video today from the next day of the series, but I am still up in the White Mountains. And so, therefore, I did a couple of outtakes from the Greenleaf Hut, the very first hut I went to. And it's about 14, 15 minutes or so of what I saw up there in the huts. I didn't put it in the original video because it was too long, but I put it here today if you guys want to watch it. And then hopefully I'll get back to you guys in a day or two with the real videos of what's going forward. But right now I am stuck in the Whites. I have no internet connection, so therefore I have no cell service, so therefore no videos until I put them out there in a day or two. So hopefully you enjoy these outtakes from the Greenleaf Hut and the crew up there. CROO, crew up there. So they were pretty funny and they were pretty good and they took care of us. So I'll talk to you guys as soon as I get back into civilization and upload some more videos. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Water. Water is a necessity. We provide water to literally thousands of hikers who are coming off the Franconia Ridge every day. We need water for the food we make and for the dishes we do and to live up here and to make all this happen for you all, of course. We have a well at Greenleaf Hut. All of the huts have a well. Carter Notch has kind of a weird well that goes into the side of something. I've never been there actually, but I know that it's unique. Our well is about 140 feet deep. It's pretty far down there. As we're so high up, you gotta really dig down to get down to the water table. But that water is super clear and clean. We do have a chlorinator to as a double backup in case something gets in there for some reason. But it's a very low percentage of chlorine, so the water probably tastes really good. You've probably noticed that. I think it tastes pretty good. Yeah, and I grew up drinking well water my whole life, so I'm a big fan. We use water for just about everything. It's pretty important. A lot of the huts are historically built around and because of nearby water sources, and it's often in the name. For those of you who don't know, this is one of 8 huts. Some people don't know that, but there's 7 others around the White Mountains, each with their own system for water. Greenleaf Hut was actually the first hut in the system to have running water, and was pretty big in revolutionizing the huts as a more of a hospitality than just like emergency shelter for hikers, which was pretty cool. For a brief stint, Greenleaf had flush toilets, which went really badly. We now have composting toilets. Any questions about the water that we use up here? We still use these to bring supplies up, and it is really, for a number of reasons, it's the safest way to pack up 50 to 80 pounds on your back, especially when you're going over steep rocks and crazy trails in the White Mountains, because when you put it on, we pack all of our boxes up really high so that the weight is kind of top heavy, and there's no waist strap, which is honestly a very good thing, because that way if we fall we wouldn't be pinned down by our weight. And you hold the weight in your hands so that it's not completely on your shoulders and your back. And having the weight so high up makes it, when you're actually climbing, it almost propels you forward, which is pretty cool. And in the event that you should fall, it just slides all the way down. And ideally doesn't hit you in the head on its way down. And sometimes you tumble with it, but the idea is that the weight then is off of you and you're free to get up as you see fit. So they're kind of silly, but they work really well. And I've tried packing with a normal backpack before, and it is super uncomfortable. It really hurts your low back, and it's really also hard to get the amount of food and the volume of food that we pack up into a small backpack like that with a waist strap. Because we mostly are packing up huge amounts of produce and meat and dairy, and those come in pretty big boxes and are a lot of volume. So it's important that we're able to get those up here. Does anyone have any questions about the pack board?
What kind of weight are you packing up?
Like how much?
Yeah.
It varies. It varies a lot. It depends. Usually average would be about 40. A bigger day would be 60 each. But sometimes it's 80. So I like to keep that in the range. And people are crazy sometimes and pack what we call a century and do 100 pounds. It's just not really up my alley personally. I think that sounds miserable, but it's impressive how hard 30 pounds. I don't know if you all ever weigh the backpacks that you carry, but they're probably not that heavy with all the lightweight materials and gear out there these days. And even like a really heavy backpack for like a short backpacking trip could still be under 50 pounds. So it really adds up. And the board itself is like 10 to 15 pounds. Yeah. Any other questions about the pack board or the packing?
Do you
method?
just do that when you bring it back up from your days off, or do you have to go down and come back up?
Sorry, what was that?
Do you do it only when you come back up on your days off, or do you?
You do both. So if you're coming back from your days off, that's always on a pack day. So pack days are Wednesday and Saturday. So you always come back up. You start working, you clock in by strapping your food on and coming up the mountain. And then we do it twice a week. And because we go on our days off every 11 days, that means there's also days where we just go up and down without doing anything in the valley.
Wow.
So part of that is bringing everything out of the hut. You may have heard us already tell you to pack out your trash. We tell people to do that a million times a day when people come through asking for a trash can. And I always say to them, I pack it out too, because we have to pack out all of our own trash on our backs. And we also sort out all of our recycling. And while we do compost as everything we can up here, some of the food waste, we also have to bring down anything that's meat or dairy. It doesn't compost well up here in the near alpine zone. So we bring that down on our backs too and try to bag it in enough plastic that it doesn't leak down us on our way down. So that's a big one. And then in the fall, we actually end up packing the compost out too, because it's just too cold for the compost to really compost up here. Food and water, and there's one more big one that the hut needs to run.
Electricity.
Yeah, so power in general. So we have propane tanks out back that supplies our stove. We have a pretty huge stove. It's 9 burner, and we use it to make all the food we make for y'all. And it also helps power our hot water heater, which is also really critical for food and making it safe for us to do dishes and having that all be food service safe. However, other than that, our hut is all powered by solar power. We have solar panels up on the roof, and we get relatively enough sun up here, even though we're in the clouds a lot. We have some pretty impressive batteries that can store a lot of power, so that even on the cloudiest days, we have something to work on. And we very rarely turn on our backup generator, which is propane fed, and helps us out in a pinch. But even when I was here in the fall and the days were short and it was cloudy all the time, we only turned that on like twice. So that's pretty awesome. So that powers all the lights in the hut are LED. The solar panels power our refrigerator and freezer, and water pump and all those things, which is pretty cool. Other than that, we don't really use much electricity. There's no outlets. We of course have some for maintenance of kitchen appliances and our phones and things we need to perform everything else we do here and charge our radios and stuff. But other than that, it's a very low energy use system up here, which is pretty cool. The huts did used to have wind turbines, some of these higher elevation huts anyways, and those have been phased out because the winds in the Whites are so dramatic that they actually just broke the wind turbines more than the wind turbines were really worth it. So they were replacing them all the time. And the solar technology has advanced so much that it was really worth it to just make that full switch, which is pretty cool. Although I always like the idea of a wind turbine up on my hut. I kind of wish it was still happening like that. Any questions about power? So then moving on, I mentioned the recycling and trash and compost that we're doing. Our compost is kind of killing it right now, despite all the rain and wet of the past couple weeks. I think I temped it this morning at 150 degrees. So we go out and we stir it and we add compost every day. And we also add wood chips to aid in the composting. And it's pretty awesome to watch all this stuff turn into dirt. And then we literally stomp it through a grate and it goes back into the world. So that's really fun, reduces the waste a lot. Aside from that, the other sort of outs that the hut produces, we make a lot of dry, gray water from draining our sinks, and we have a pretty impressive septic system. They're actually looking at implementing a whole new one because of the increasing traffic around Greenleaf Hut, and the demand on the septic system has been growing a lot. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be riddled in bites. And we have 3 huge, tanks that are filled with charcoal, and they act as a sort of filter, and you can imagine water going through sand and filtering out all the nastiness. And before it even enters those tanks, it goes through different tanks separating out. There's like a grease trap and I'm not sure what the other tanks are, but it filters through the water, and we tested all these stages to make sure it's safe enough to release back in the environment, and then it's drained out in a leach field way back behind the hut and dispersed throughout the soil, which is pretty cool. It all goes back out there. That includes water that is drained from the composting toilets too, so that those liquids are separated as well. So that brings me to the toilets, which are composting and reduce the volume of waste by 80%, which is awesome. To help with that process, we add wood chips every day and bacteria once a week. And we also do what we call raking, which is where we go in from below and kind of stir it up. And it's not as gross as it sounds, I promise. And we make sure we get really clean afterwards. But that does help a lot, and we kind of have to decone, as we call it, a lovely thing to talk about before dinner. But as I said, with the masses of people coming around this ridge, it is really important, and it does really pile up. So that's part of our job up here, and we're happy to do it to make it all work. As I said before, the flushing toilets weren't working, so it's good to do that. And at the very end of the season, whatever is remaining from that composting process is flown out to be further composted in the valley, which is pretty cool. The process doesn't end here. Yeah, those are the big ones. What am I missing? Does anyone have any questions?
How many people do you get through here in a season?
Oh God, I don't know.
Staying
Like, let's see. Our full count is 48. We have 44 of you tonight, which is almost full. Which is it a holiday today? I don't know why it's so full on a Monday, actually. I've been kind of stumped.
Get 2 of those if we need them.
Yeah, you got it.
I'm serious, really.
No, for real. We
I
can
feel
chat
like
about
I
it.
can't even walk inside.
Yeah, we can talk. We can definitely make that happen for you. We got plenty of food, and so let's see. We're almost always full on the weekends. It drops off, but in the summer it could be like 20 to 30 on any weeknight. Sometimes it's as low as 10. You can do the math. I'm not sure. It's a good question though. I'd be curious to know the number because we talk to a lot of people, and we do this every single night, which is kind of crazy. Any other questions?
So do you guys have, campfire? Or some sort of activities you do with the guests, like some stuff?
We do a few things. We don't have fires because they're not super safe for this super flammable wooden hut. You have to light flames at least 200 feet away. And I don't know if campfires are actually allowed in the alpine zone. Actually, I'm pretty sure they're not, but if you go down yonder, you could probably do a safe fire somewhere. But here at the hut, we do this talk. We do an educational program that our naturalist performs every night, and that's after dinner. And then the dinner service itself is slightly a show of sorts. I don't know. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and get your expectations up too high, but we tend to be a little silly, and we make it fun. And then we do a informational skit in the mornings with breakfast, and we have games and books, and that's about it. Other than that, the activities are your own to create. Yeah, well, that's a good question. Campfires would be awesome. That'd be fun. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm ready to call it with all these bugs flying around me. So thank you all for your attention. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
In about 10 minutes. Hey everyone, as Ella said, my name is Annika. I use she, her pronouns. It's my second season in the Huts. I'm from North Yarmouth, Maine, and I was the cook of the day for you all today. And it's tradition that the cook of the day will ask the rest of the crew a question so you can get to know us all a bit better as they introduce themselves. So my question for the crew that they haven't heard so far is that if you were a little gnome sitting somewhere in the hut observing everything going on, where would you be sitting and why? So my answer is up in this window here above you that you can see. I would be sitting with Jeeves, our butler, and just hanging out, watching everything happen in the dining room. Yeah. Cool. Well, my name is May, as I said. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Calais, Vermont, and this is my third season working in the huts. If I were a little bitty gnome and I lived in the hut, I would live, in the pocket of our aprons so that I could walk around with my friends all day.
Alrighty, I'm Ella, I use she, her pronouns. It's my second season in the huts, and I'm from Newark, Delaware. And if I were a gnome, which wouldn't be a bad way to live in this hut, I would be up on that windowsill, I think, and I'd hopefully be one of those swivel gnomes, you know. And I could look at Lafayette and also oversee the dining room and everyone enjoying dinner and talking.
My name's Kate. This is my second season in the huts. I'm from Jay, Vermont. If I were a gnome, I would live in the basement.